I'm David Sproxton. I'm co-founder of Aardman Animations, but I'm also a trustee of Fly2Help. Quite a long involved story, but I'll cut it very short. I met Phil O'Dell through Colin Green, and they came to do some talks for us here at Aardman. Rolls-Royce very kindly gave 3 very interesting talks. On the last one, they brought in their chief test pilot, Phil O'Dell, who gave a very interesting talk. And at the end of the talk, Colin said, actually, Phil, would like to have a chat with you about this small charity he's thinking of setting up, and that was that. Well, I have a sort of interest in aviation. At quite an early age, I went on a YHA gliding holiday. It was the first time I'd ever been in an aircraft, and so I was in this open 2-seater, I think a 221 glider, and spent a week kind of learning to try and fly this thing. And I guess goes right back to that time when I found it wasn't just exhilarating, there was something very different about the way, literally the way you see the world, the control, and the way you operate in 3D space. Most of the time our feet are planted on the ground, we operate in a kind of 2D space. I think also there's something probably evolutionary, we're probably still a bit of birdiness. I mean, I oddly get quite bad vertigo on high buildings, but I don't get it when I'm flying. Later, having gone through college and then came down to Bristol, I've always thought it would be lovely to go gliding again, and I did in the mid-80s, mid-80s I guess I took it up again, and had a single-seater aircraft which I shared with quite a few people. I find it very difficult to describe because you're on your own, you have to make all your own decisions, you have to learn to trust yourself, and so you very quickly, as you're learning, you face your own limitations, and you're also going to push yourself. But there's also the sheer beauty of gliding, because it's pretty quiet. These aircraft fly absolutely beautifully, and you can look at the landscape in a way that is unique. You are often, you're there literally with the birds, and occasionally you end up therming in a bird, which is really quite special. So when Phil mentioned this charity, actually most people never get the chance to go up in a light aircraft. They never get to experience what real flying is about, as opposed to going into an airline, which actually isn't a very comfortable experience. And it's the difference between being on a cross-channel ferry and being in, say, a small sailing boat, or possibly, in Pod's case, flying Spitfire, a small speedboat. You experience the environment in a very, very different way. And it's quite a privileged thing to be able to do. Most people can't do it. And it is transformational in terms of flying, and experiencing the world was pretty profound. And you find that it's a huge leveller. I mean, at my gliding club, I don't really know what any of these people do. You kind of vaguely know what they do, but actually it doesn't matter because you're all just pilots together, learning to wrestle with the elements. So that aspect of aviation and the way it can have a transformative experience for me was kind of in a way at the heart of Fly2Help, about giving families basically an experience which they wouldn't normally get. And a great memory, but also something that might trigger something in their heads. Well, my role on the charity, like any trustee on a charity, is a lot of it's, some of it's to do with government, which is making sure it's a charity, so it has to comply with charity law, that you are keeping on the straight and narrow in terms of finance, you've got enough finance to pay the staff, and you are basically addressing the aims, missions and vision of the charity, which in this case is dealing with mostly traumatised individuals or families, and finding a way of funding those activities and following up. So that's kind of what a trustee is. My own skills here at Aardman, so a little bit of help on publicity, sort of media-related activities, think about marketing, design. I pull on some of the resources at Aardman to help them. So it's just a general helping hand. An Air Smiles Day is an event where you'll take a traumatised family, maybe a family that's got a life-limited child, or somebody's going through hell one form or another, and it's an event which is normally takes place at probably Kemble or Staverton or a small airfield, and they'll go up in a light aircraft. And that could be a helicopter, it could be a single-engine machine, it could be a twin-engine machine, and it gives them an experience which they wouldn't normally ever be able to experience. Seeing the world from literally a different perspective, possibly be able to fly the thing or not, but certainly experiencing a light aircraft flight And also, it also incorporates seeing things like the fire station, the control tower, a lot of stuff around kind of airfields, which are also kind of fun, and meeting the people who run it and getting there, feeling their enthusiasm for what they do. Generally, it's very, very positive, and you'll see people that have come in feeling a bit down, a bit low, or they're stressed or whatever, and go away in a much more positive state. And hopefully that lasts. It might only last a day or two, it might last longer. We give them a very nice photo book of the event, so they've got that both as a memory, but to recall what they've gone through and to act as inspiration. Well, the beneficiaries, they'll vary. Some of them might just be possibly very, very depressed. Some of them will have possibly up to life-limited diseases, kids with cancer. They may have just gone through severe trauma, a whole bundle of issues that people go through. And this is sort of people have ended up in just a very difficult place, really. And the whole thing really is around, it's not just necessarily about the individual, but those that are close to him, the families, the mothers and fathers, the carers. So it becomes a combined memory. Understanding what goes on, how you express that enthusiasm, and understanding what goes on, in my case, in my own head, about what I was experiencing, and actually the beauty of it, the challenge of it, being there with the elements. I think there's something most people don't have the opportunity to fly at what you call quite low altitudes. You take off in a jet airliner and you shoot up to 35,000 feet, and everything's just kind of down there. You don't experience dance around clouds. You mostly aren't low enough to understand the topography of the landscape. Landing in a big jet liner is very different from landing in a light aircraft. Most of the people on the trustees have some aviation experience. A number of them are pilots of various forms, private pilots, ex-military RAF or civil airline pilots, or connected in some way through that world. And what we found is the aviation world has been very, very generous. They get it. People that have gone through that experience, or part of it, understand the way it can be transformed and the way in which you think. A lot of pilots, they're very good at thinking in 3D space. And you find that curious, a bit like engineers who think in 3D space, they're often slightly dyslexic, but because their heads think in a different way. So they understand that their mind thinks in a slightly different way to most people, but actually it makes them very, very good at doing what they're doing. And I think that's why it connects with people who, are in a different state of mind to the norm, because they often understand actually there's a quirkiness about everybody. And so the world is full of people that have a different mindset and a different state. And how can you and you don't know what's going to trigger people, I think, like anything, particularly with kids. How do you excite kids? How do you stimulate them? And one of the ways of doing that is to give them experiences that they may not think of themselves. Well, the charity is expanding bit by bit. We're setting up satellite bases around the country. Initially, it's just been based at Kemble. We're doing more events at Staverton. There are 5 or 6 kind of satellite airfields that are starting up in Wales, in the south, and a couple in the north. The health and safety issues are pretty profound, so we want to make sure that those are absolutely in place and they're well governed. But that's the plan, is just to open it up more across the country, make it more of a national charity rather than just a local charity. It's a different sort of charity to most. I think partially it's probably more local. Most people, there's an airfield close by. It's something that most people don't think about. And I think in terms of how you stimulate or excite or give opportunity, it comes from literally a different viewpoint. And I found it's more tangential to most charities. Let's deal directly with the ailments, whether it's cancer or tuberculosis or polio, all that kind of stuff. This is not saying it's not a medical-based charity. There certainly is a therapeutic effect that the events have, the Air Smiles Day, and it's definitely kind of therapeutic. When people see the results of it, that's why they'd be interested in getting involved in it.